Presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 and use the promo code WELCOME to Light Years. Sam Spandiari here. Got my guy Tommy sitting across from me, and happy New Year's Eve. Nice Warriors win to close out 2025. Got a little dicey there for a second, but ultimately, look, on paper, Toronto, Brooklyn, Charlotte is not like the three hardest opponents. But when you look at the flying cross country back-to-back into a 10 a.m. start, basically 3 games in under, 3.5 days? What do you want to call it? Something like that. Mm-hmm. I'll take 2-1 on that trip. I mean, you can't you can't look at it from that negative of a lens. And they're trending in a positive direction. And you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it to close out the year. Big January ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, that's 5 out of 6 that they've won now, definitely trending in the right direction. Like you said, any of these East Coast swings where you're, especially during the winter, you're playing in cold weather cities. A lot of your team isn't used to that. Maybe a lot of your guys haven't even spent a lot of time on the East Coast. Like, you take 2-1 on these type of trips. Even though you would have loved to be 3-0, 3-0 was definitely there for them to take. You leave this trip taking 2 out of 3. You're going back home now. You're 18-16 on the season when you were 13-15 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. Things are moving in the right direction. It feels like they are ironing out some stuff rotation wise. They're finding the right combinations, for lack of a better term. It just feels like they're moving in a positive direction for like a little bit of an extended period of time for the first time this season.
Well, let's talk about that because I think it's a fun game. The Hornets are plucky. I don't know. I like a lot of their players. Knipples, fucking dude. Did you? By the way, this is a side tangent, but Klay Thompson's the youngest player to shoot over 40% on 8+ threes a game. He did it when he was 25, and that, some of that is just the kind of the proliferation of the 3-point shot. Steph could have done it when he was 22, but no one was taking 8 threes a game when he was 22, right? Anyway, my point is Knippel is doing that as a rookie.
Antoine Walker erasure, but continue.
He never touched 40%. Let's be real, buddy.
I'm just saying 8 threes a game, not the 40%.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Doing it as a 20-year-old rookie is insane. And then when you consider the guy's got he's a good playmaker. They got a star. They got a star there.
Oh man, I mean, look, I was watching the game with both my dad and my brother, and my brother and I were just talking about it. Would Khan be the Warriors' their best player? And
offensively, he might be their second best player immediately. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's he is exactly the way the league is headed, which is he's not the most athletic guy, but he's big. He can shoot the hell out of the ball, and he can handle and make decisions.
Yep.
So if you're scared of him when he has the ball in his hands from 25 feet, it opens everything up. This is what Steph did to basketball. He is just the next level of Steph. I don't know. If Knippel comes around in 1994, is he playing this way?
No.
Do they make him play more off ball like a traditional shooter? Probably, So, not to beat a dead horse, but that's always kind of why I find the lottery picks they took in the 2 timeline plan hilarious, because it's Steph basically changed which skills matter the most in basketball, and you went back with some archaic, ooh, look how athletic they are,
Pick Tyrese Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, getting back on point. So 3 clutch games on this trip. And look, the Toronto loss was brutal, and it did expose it exposed basically the roster's weaknesses, which is they're just a little too limited physically, period. They have a lot of limitations, but we'll start with that one. Toronto just engulfed them that way, but they were able to pull the next 2 out. And I think the Hornets one was interesting because of the closing lineup. Steph, D'Anthony Melton, Will Richard, Jimmy, and Draymond. Mm-hmm. That's the formula. That you can say they need to upgrade that formula, get someone who's bigger, longer, faster than Will Richard or D'Anthony Melton or Draymond, honestly, if you want to throw it out there. But the formula is correct, which is you surround Steph and Jimmy with legit 3-and-D guys who play like their hair is on fire. Like guys who understand their role. Like Will Richard understands his role. D'Anthony Melton has understood this role his entire career. Like those guys, they make quick decisions. If they're open, they shoot it. If they're not open, they kick it. They move. They're able to crash the glass. Like Will Richard can rebound. They both just get every loose ball. And honestly, it's not just that's the Warriors formula. That's every team's formula now. It's like you find your 2 stars and you try to get as many 3-and-D guys who know how to function off ball, get loose balls, make quick decisions, and like in a perfect world, you get them as big and as athletic as you can.
Yeah, and that's the same closing lineup they went with against Brooklyn as well. And I do think it's instructive. I don't think it's an accident. I do think it's intentional, whatever terms you want to use. And I think it is very key to point out a couple of things that you pointed out. Number one, both those guys rebound, or at least they contest on rebounds above kind of what their height and their physical profile was.
Obviously, they remind me of like Thunder players, to be honest. Like we just watched a Thunder win with like the Lou Dort, the Kassan Wallace, like those type of guys. Yeah, to your point, they rebound way above what you'd expect for a 6'3" guy.
Even if they're not getting the rebound, they are contesting it to the point that it becomes a loose ball. Whereas where the Warriors have had a lot of problems with these small lineups is when they just can't rebound. You know what I mean? They are able to get kind of the initial stop, but they're not able to finish the possession and get the rebound. So it's not only that, but also, I mean, obviously Will hits the big 3 out of the corner there, but also when he doesn't love his shot instantly, a Moody, a Kuminga, and like some of the other younger guys, some of the other guys who have been on the roster, they hesitate. They don't like make the next decision. Will caught the ball the next possession after hitting a 3, caught it up top, and instead he didn't love his shot. He just drove into the paint instantly and then like created the next pass. You know what I mean? So you're not burning the advantage that's created by Steph's movement or by Jimmy drawing 2. And that's been the issue with a lot of their lineups to, I think, kind of close games with some of the guys who just frankly don't process as quickly. They lose the advantage that's created because the guys on the floor can't think quickly enough. And Will and Melton are obviously, they're clearly both guys who think quickly enough and move the ball quickly enough and process quickly enough to where they can keep up with the mental pace that Steph and Jimmy and Draymond want to play at.
Yeah, and like my whole thing is, in a perfect world, you're probably playing one of those guys, and the other wing is more of your traditional 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guy, which is why we hear them wanting Trey Murphy, but like, or even Herb Jones, to be honest with you. Different players, but you know, bigger wings definitely could defend the bigger playmakers, the Lukas of the world, and they play that same style of quick decision making, understanding their role, ability to hit open shots. Like obviously Trey Murphy's a great shooter, and Herb's more for the defense than the shot making. He hits just enough, but they're, you know, it's clear that I think they recognize it. Yeah. I think throughout this entire process, they've wanted to make it work with some of their bigger wings. And like, we know what happened. Like at this point, like they wanted Kuminga to do that. He didn't want to do it. You know, we can go through that for the bazillionth time. I keep pointing it out, you know, like Steve could not be clearer. Be Aaron Gordon, be Sean Marion, like be one of these wings who understands their role, playing off ball, making quick decisions, taking your open shots, moving without the ball, those things. He didn't really want to do it. And now I think it's very clear they're just holding him out until the trade deadline. Like he's going to get traded. I at this point am going to be shocked if he's not moved. Like it will be, it's like a 5-alarm organizational failure if he's not moved at the deadline, given how much of a cap hit he's taking and how public this like fallout is, you know, like there's just no, you just can't, there's no like PR spin you could put forth in February to be like, oh, he's still an important part of this team and we want to use him in the playoffs. Like, no, it's done, you know, it's done. Right.
Yeah. And you know, to that point, I do wonder how top down this decision is, or if it's just kind of Kerr acting unilaterally. I'd be somewhat shocked if it was just Kerr kind of acting and saying, I'm just not playing him, and kind of giving the middle finger to Joe. I would assume there's some type of handshake deal here. And not that there hasn't been the entire time since the contract was signed in the summer, but like, we're not really hearing anything from Mayrock Turner anymore either. You know, it feels like there's just something getting put in here, you know,
because he wants to move him. Everyone wants, like, you know, he wants to move on too, you know,
I don't blame him either.
I don't know.
I think everyone's on the same page here, and that's what it is. But I do think, like, to take it back to the point, I think the way they close this game is instructive to how they can have a successful season with this team. They have some players who fit those characteristics. They don't have enough of them. The other things they could obviously use, someone who could create some offense when Steph's not there or when Jimmy's not there. That goes without saying. They could always use a little more size inside. Although I think with the way Quentin Post has played this season and with Al Horford, less back-to-backs, maybe you think you have enough.
And he looks better.
Al has enough of that position.
Yeah, Al has looked better, to be frank. And I think TJD has actually been pretty dang good the last couple of weeks.
It's a great call.
Yeah. He's nothing special, but like he went from literally not being playable to, okay, he can give us 8 to 10 minutes a game as like an energy, hustle, length, lob finisher. And if he's playing well, we can give him a little bit more leash. So I think their center rotation is starting to figure itself out. Like Post obviously started tonight great. Al just looks more like, I think, the Al that we thought we'd be getting. He's making more of his open threes. He even had a little post touch night where he made a hook over a small. Like he just looks more solid. He looks more like himself. He looks like he's playing himself into shape in a way. And like, frankly, that's just going to take time for a 39-year-old sometimes. Like
that's kind of, as much as we don't want to say it, that was part of the deal when they signed him.
Yeah,
he's 39.
Especially he didn't get the offseason with the team. Like he wasn't able to be in their facility because he was not signed to the team. Like I don't think that can go overstated. Like that is a big part of this, and not that I don't think Al would have been in like tremendously different shape, but like it was kind of he signed his contract and then training camp was like I think we were in training camp when he signed his contract. Basically, like the season had basically already started, so it feels like everything is starting to gel together. But yeah, I mean, the way they close the game tonight is definitely, again, instructive for how they want to play. But I think also Guy Santos' minutes tonight, it just shows if they can get some bigger wings who are just functional, like better. I mean, obviously you want to aim higher than Guy if you're trading for a wing, but even just having a functional wing who understands how to play within the flow of the system, who understands how to cut, can stick an open shot, can rebound, can defend well enough. It shows you how far that goes. So if you can get a guy who's actually talented and does all those things, like along with being able to like make shots, that could be a massive, massive swing piece for this team.
Yeah. And it helps them if they can find one who's on the bigger side, like a traditional prototypical wing, that'll help them too. Like they're not going to be the largest team in the league, but they do have to somewhat close that size gap. Like too many games have come down to where it's just like, man, they're just a little too small here, a little too small. So, That's why we keep focusing on the bigger wings. We've talked big men, those sort of things. But 18-16 to close the year. If I told you that before the season started, how'd you feel?
Very disappointed.
Okay. How are you feeling? How are you feeling now? Let's do both.
All things considered, not terrible. Especially considering they were 13-15 not even 2 weeks ago. They've had, some injuries, nothing major, but they've definitely had, they're starting to get healthy now where they have most of, if not all their guys available. If that wasn't a reality really until Melton came back, you couldn't consider them fully healthy until Melton came back a couple weeks ago. So they're getting healthy. And really, I think maybe the biggest mistake that I made just with my predictions on the season was not looking at the early schedule closely enough. How many times did not only we talk about, but local media, Steve, talked about how brutal that early season schedule was. And they're basically through that now. Like they just played this East Coast road swing. They've already done the Cleveland, Indiana, Milwaukee. They've done a lot of these East Coast road swings. They did the Orlando, Miami one. Like they've played a lot of these kind of.
They played most of their back-to-backs already, and they're not even halfway through the season.
Yeah, so. I mean, they played a lot of them. They have, I want to say they have 4.
They didn't play a lot of them. They played the most of the NBA.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They played the most back-to-backs. They do have, of course, the back end of their schedule too. I want to say the last 15 to 20 games, they have a bunch of back-to-backs loaded in there. But
yeah,
most of those are condensed within the West Coast, so they're easier to manage. And plus, at that point, you're kind of going, your foot's on the gas anyway. So you're kind of going balls to the wall. I feel like those
It's
aren't
hard
as
to-
detrimental in a certain light.
And the other part of it is a lot of the teams you're playing. Well, it's going to be 50-50. It's either going to be teams who are fighting for position where it's a true playoff game, or teams who, look, if you played them in December, it'd be a lot tougher than playing them April 1st. There's a lot of teams who are doing the okay, season's over, let's see the end of the bench, or we're 5 games behind the 4 seed and 5 games ahead of the 6 seed, and we can't really make movement. So, no one's playing 30 minutes tonight. Go get your win,
So yeah, overall, I'd say somewhat disappointed, but considering the context, I think they've made it through this stretch somewhat admirably. I think the record could obviously be 3 to 4 games better, and it wouldn't have been that difficult if they had just taken care of business a couple of times. But again, now you're 18-16. You're heading into basically a massive homestand here where you can really start to rack up some wins.
Yeah. So I had them at 22 wins at this point.
Okay.
So, and look, obviously I was more optimistic on them than I should have been. 21 to 22 wins. So they're underachieving in terms of what I thought. To your point, I probably didn't give enough credence to how condensed the first month and a half of the season was for them, and how naturally, as an older team, they were just going to take some L's there because they were not going to push. Some of those back-to-backs, you just weren't going to get the Steph Jimmy effort you're going to get the second half of the season. And that's just reality. So I didn't bake in enough of that in my projections in the way I'm looking at it. However, I will say this, as they're ending the season here, this January stretch is probably the softest stretch of their schedule. One of the softest stretches of schedule. You point out this homestand. Beyond the homestand, they do not leave the state of California until the 21st of January. So they're home. They're in California for 3 weeks. There's a trip to LA in there. Oh, wow. That sort of thing. And then the road trip that they have at the end of January, it's still a Western Conference one. So a little less problematic. They don't leave the Western time zones, they don't go west of Texas again until after the All-Star break. That's all. So they're super home heavy in January. And then there's some, road trips to the central, the Dallases, the Minnesotas, the Utahs of the world, but there's no East Coast trips. There's none of the crazy cross country trips. So, this is probably the stretch. This is the stretch that's going to define their season, particularly when you consider January 15th is getting baked into this. Now, they're going to have to move Kuminga. And the reality is you're probably going to get an underwhelming return. But if they can get someone who can help them in some capacity, that's another kickstart to this team. And I don't know. I don't want to say I'm trying to be optimistic about it, but I'm looking at this. I keep thinking about last year. They were 24 and 25. Sorry, no, they're 25 and 26 when they traded for Jimmy. When they get to that 50 game mark, which is the trade deadline again, there's no reason when I look at this schedule, when I see just home, LA, home, that sort of thing, there's no reason they shouldn't be 29 and 21, that sort of thing.
Easily.
And when you start factoring that in, then you get to the second half of the season when everyone's pushing a little more aggressively, they're not out of it at all in terms of getting out of the play-in, which is my number one goal anyway. So I don't know. Disappointed. It sucks. You're watching it. Afterwards, I can also be I get it. Important stretch. I feel like January is going to define the season. For better or worse, what they do at the trade deadline is going to make a major determinant in terms of, do Steph and Jimmy have that juice where they're oh, we can run this thing, and they play with a little extra vigor? Or do the old guys look at the roster while being underwhelmed at the trade deadline and go, you know what? I just don't want to tear something. I'm just trying. Let me just get to April and let's see if I can do it next year. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. Take that for what it is, But yeah, they're closing the year with a little positive momentum. Can't really ask for much more than that.
Yeah, no, I think things are trending in the right direction, and that's what you would like to see at this point in the season, considering how everything has gone so far. But we should talk about Prize Picks real quick, shouldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Light Years Podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football or basketball season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this winter. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports stakes into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out on those winnings before the game even finishes. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win. So download the app today and use code LIGHTYEARS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LIGHTYEARS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
It is good to be right. It is good to be right. Hey, quick guys. Body Spec, you know the deal. Tomorrow's New Year's. Willing to bet almost all of you have a resolution about getting in better shape, getting yourself back on your fitness journey, looking at photos of yourself when you were 23, wondering, oh, what happened to me? Hey, we've all been there. I get it. Look, the number one thing to do when you're trying to get back in rhythm is get an honest assessment where you're at. And what's the best way to get an assessment where you're at? Get a DEXA scan. What's a DEXA scan? It's a highly accurate method of measuring your body's composition. So body fat percentage, lean muscle mass, visceral body fat, all the things that really tell you what's going on, more accurate than just standing on a scale. And our friends at Body Spec have made it affordable for all. So with the code LIGHTYEARS45, you can get a DEXA scan for only $45. That's right. Only $45. Traditionally, this costs $300, $400, $500. But Body Spec's made it affordable for all. Locations in San Francisco and LA, and they got mobile vans that will come to you. So literally you sign up, you tell them when you want to get scanned, they drive out to you, gets done quick, results are in your email, start your fitness journey, guys. All right. Oh. You know what? I do want to talk about this. Anytime they go to Charlotte, it feels like a special game because of how much Charlotte means to Steph. Mm-hmm. He got the street name this time.
Yeah,
at Davidson.
Yeah, exit 30. I think it's on I-77 or something like that. Steph and Curry exchange. Pretty cool.
It's just the funny thing with Steph for me is like he used to talk up Charlotte so much his first few years. Like it almost felt like he was determined to end his career in Charlotte. And these days, I don't know. I don't think that's happening. I don't think he's really interested in that either. I just think he's been in the Bay Area for 16 years now, and it's home for him.
100%.
But anytime you go back there, I mean, that's where his dad is. That's where his family is. So it's still special in many different ways.
Yeah, it's obviously it still holds a place in his heart. But at the same time, I think, he spent basically his entire adult life in the Bay Area. He went from being, basically single, not married, to being married, having 4 kids. Like he's built an entire life in the Bay Area, and his
kids are all Bay Area kids. Like
exactly,
grandma and grandpa may be in Charlotte, but they did not grow up in Charlotte like Steph.
In separate houses, mind you. I don't think that's a small part of this. The fact that Dell and Sonia aren't together anymore, it probably has it gives Charlotte a little bit less of a pull on his heart, because things are just, if your parents are split like that, like things are more complicated when you go back home. But yeah, he's just, and he is so revered in the Bay Area now. Not that he doesn't have God tier status in Charlotte, but in the Bay, he's royalty. He's one of the 4 most famous athletes in the history of the Bay Area. We're talking Barry Bonds, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Steph. Like those are probably the 4. Yep. And you can quibble about that, but I think he's on that Mount Rushmore no matter what. So it obviously is cool to see Steph go back to Charlotte, and you feel like he always does have a little bit more in the tank. You feel like there's always a chance of like a special Steph performance when he goes back there, and he was good tonight. He wasn't, he wasn't otherworldly, but it was a nice like B+ Steph game. But yeah, it's just cool, man. It feels like stuff like this keeps happening for him. And it's all deserved. It's that nobody deserves it more than him. But
I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I also think it's cool he constantly goes back to Davidson. Like it's a small school. I don't think they've produced another NBA player. They certainly haven't produced another NBA star.
No.
It's just like, imagine being a student at Davidson. You're going to your game. You're mid-major. Like, it's not the same as going to a Duke or a Kansas game where the expectations are like national and that sort of thing. And in walks one of the three most famous pro athletes on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. It's just a different thing.
I want to say it's a school of like 2,500 kids. It's a tiny private liberal school. Like schools like that do not produce NBA players, especially in this day and age. Like, and it's going to happen less and less just because of how proliferated high school recruiting is and highlight tapes. And there are no unfound players anymore for the most part. You still get guys who slip through the cracks, but I feel like these kind of mid-major types, like the mid-major guard was a thing for a while. Because it's kind of these late bloomer types, like a Steph or a Dame. But I feel like these guys are just going to happen less and less because of where the value in basketball scouting is placed. It's more on skill and shooting and stuff like that, as opposed to
I mean, let me interject. Let me interject. If Steph happens today, NIL. Right. He's transferring to Duke. He's transferring to North Carolina. Like now you just see guys go to mid majors and immediately get picked up by high majors. There's no his story is so awesome because he stayed there for 3 years. He built them into a program. They had the Cinderella run. Today he averages 20 year one in Davidson. He's not going back for year two where they have that Elite Eight run. I mean, maybe he is, but he certainly would have a ton of very compelling options that would pay him a ton of money not to go back, and I just think that's kind of, when I think of Steph at Davidson, I think of that is like the ultimate joy of college sports. Like it's like the romanticism behind it. And, NIL is great from a moral standpoint. Like it's right for the kids, but it does kill the kind of the fairy tale aspect.
Yeah, it kills the amateurism of it. Like you said, the fairy tale aspect, the Cinderella-ness of college sports. Yeah, he would have been, and I think obviously his situation is a little bit different in general. Like Steph getting a $1 million NIL offer after his freshman year, that's not necessarily moving the needle for him. The family wasn't wanting for money, but still, you throw that amount of money in front of a college kid and it's his. Like he's going to be liable to take it.
I mean, I think honestly, if you told him he could be the starting guard at North Carolina or Duke, he would have transferred because that's what he wanted more than anything, to go to be in like the biggest moments on the biggest stage. Like that's the thing he's wanted the most. And if he was to do that during his day and age, he had to sit out a whole year to transfer. Like, right. That's that type of thing. Like Seth did that. Where did Seth go? Liberty? And then he transferred to Duke?
Yeah, Liberty.
Yeah. And so he sat out a year and, Seth has a different career trajectory than him, but like someone of Steph's status was not going to just sit out a whole year, like it was not happening. And so it is like in many ways, he truly is the last of a dying breed in like so many different ways. The college athlete one, the small school guy, putting him on the map. Don't know if we're going to see that again. One franchise for maybe 20 years. I don't know how many years. If he retires at 19, I'll call it 20 anyway. Don't know if we'll see that again. Like he's such a, beyond the fact that he's made man in the Bay Area and, obviously our favorite player forever. It just feels like we're not going to see a guy who doesn't like that again.
He is one of one in the truest sense. The entire story from the moment you can really start tracking it nationally until now. And then you can just even go to the basketball with the skill set and the way he plays the game, the joy that he brings other people. A highlight of, I think it was of the 73rd win popped up on my Twitter timeline a couple of days ago, and I think I quoted it saying, we will quite literally never see anything like this again. The way that people felt about that team in 2015-16, the public reaction to them, the national media reaction, the way that fans were waiting outside of the stadium 2.5 hours before games. I don't think we're ever going to see anything that organic again, just because of the way that media and social media and how contrived everything feels nowadays. All of that felt organic, and it was organic, and it starts with one guy.
Oh, you didn't think it was organic when Jalen Williams took a photo where he was trying to look like Kobe with the broken hand?
Jesus Christ, dude. It's so cringeworthy. It's so cringeworthy.
That actually reminds me, yesterday I saw something on, I want to say TikTok, I'll try to pull it up right now.
Oh God.
But it was no. I'll save the MPJ ones for the group chat. No, it was about the 2016 Warriors, and it was the audio of them with the Warriors chant, Warriors. And then you just you see the guy's face, and he's clearly not a Warriors fan. He just wants to die. And it's just like just hearing the audio of this. I mean, it was just like sometimes just like the small sound, like it just took me back. I was like, it's never going to be like that again. Like they may have a great team. They may win titles post Steph at some point. It's just not going to feel as organic, as special as that did. And that's not like old man yelling at the clouds. That's just, they're a once in a generation team. You know, and usually your team does not get multiple once in a generation teams unless you're the Lakers. Apparently they get like the Magic one and the Kobe ones, but no one else really does.
They were the 90s Bulls. That's how much of like a show they were. And that's like the video you just showed. It's a form of posting on TikTok now. I've seen dozens of those, and I'm not even on TikTok. They pop up on Twitter all the time, but it was such a, whether you're a Warriors fan, like that was the best feeling in the world. You could go into halftime down 12. You're like, all right, we're probably going to be up like 10 at the end of the third year at minimum. And if you weren't a Warriors fan, you knew like if Steph or Clay makes 2 threes in a row to start this third quarter, the game is over. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're still up. This game is over, and they're going to be up double digits by the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's been a minute since I've heard the Warriors chant.
Yeah.
And that'll never come back either. And that was the same thing with Chicago too, by the way. The United Center was built for the second three-peat. And you listen to people talk about Chicago, they're like, oh, it wasn't the same as the first 2 years. Like, well, it never is. Once you become global, you start attracting more people. Tickets get too expensive. The Bay is worse than anywhere about that. And it's just hard to replicate that fever pitch that, you know, those things just come, they don't come around that often is the best way to put it.
Again, man, it's once in a generation stuff. And you feel lucky to have been like there for all of it. And I think, you know, going into a new year, it's like, it's smart to like look back on that stuff and cherish it, because as much as we complain about all this shit and as much as we want them to win another title, as mad as we get at Joe, as mad as we get at everybody involved with the organization, this has been a truly special run of basketball. And like, we still do get those little moments. They don't happen as frequently. They don't reach the same fever pitch. They don't reach the same intensity, but you still do get those little moments, even if it's just Steph dropping 48 in Portland in a loss.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. Let's do 2 quick things before we get out of here.
Okay, let's do it.
Our guy, Brett Siegel, did a live stream yesterday, and he noted that there are multiple teams. He said 4 to 5 teams right now who are actively calling on Jonathan Kuminga. It's the first time I've heard people mention it. Since then, there was someone else who reported that, there's 4, 5, 6. I heard as high as like 8 teams who are actively interested in him. And that was interesting to me because I was unclear with the DNPs what was going to happen.
Sure.
But to your point from the earlier part, it's like, it's so toxic that, you know, I don't know that there was another route that they could go. And if multiple teams are interested, they might be able to get something reasonable, because now you're starting a bidding war. Now, like the worst case scenario was it's just the Kings and they don't have any reason to offer you anything other than Malik Monk or DeMar DeRozan. And, you know, end of the day, you're just like, all right, we're just going to take it and call it a day. Right now, it seems like there's more teams in play, and I guess we'll see how it all shakes out. But do you have any thoughts on who those teams might be?
Kings, Bulls, Mavs, Pels, Suns.
Yeah, Kings and Suns are obviously, they tried in the summer. I would be surprised if they're still not trying. That doesn't mean that they've upped, that they're bidding against themselves. But, you know, to your point, yeah, Mavs for sure. Sam Amick said that today. And his contract is a big part of it. Like, no matter whatever you think of him, if you're a team that's in a rebuild, he's the ultimate try before you buy on a 23-year-old. You know, you think Steve Kerr's been too hard on him? Okay, great. You could give him 30 minutes a game every game and see if you can get a better result, right?
Sure.
That sort of thing. And then two, if you don't like him, off your books. You don't have to pick him up. You're not stuck with him. You're seeing how hard it is for some of these teams trying to move good players on bad contract numbers. Malik Monk's a good player. Terrible contract number. Zach LaVine is a good player. Not on a max contract, though. Teams are running, even Anthony Davis. Do you want Anthony Davis at that number?
Probably not.
Risk, it's not great, So, yeah, I think it sounds, the only thing I'm taking from all of this is the Warriors seem much more proactive and aggressive than they did in previous years. And that's a good thing because they need to be. They can't just be sitting waiting for people to come to them. I think they tried that in the past to try to do the whole we're not going to be desperate angle. Now I'm looking at it and it looks more like a look, everyone knows he needs to be moved. So let's see what I can get going here. And let's see if we can get him involved in one of these trades that has him going to a team who likes him and has something coming back our way that we like. I don't think it's Trey Murphy. I wish, but I don't think it's that. But it seems like there's like 5 to 10 teams who are actively trying to retool their rosters right now. Like Dallas, Trae Young. The Kings want to get rid of all their big contracts. So all these guys, and I don't want like Domas Sabonis or Trae Young or somewhere in that, but like those are big contract numbers. You never know if like Kuminga ends up finding his way in a 3 or a 4 team deal.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to frame it. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to frame it in that there is probably going to be money moving during the deadline at the very least. So if you can't get something done January 15th or kind of in this intermediary between that January 15th and the actual deadline, and you got to kind of wait till closer to the deadline, deals are going to be being made. Like it feels like there will be a lot of movement around the league, even if it's not superstars, it's kind of those second or third tier players. So you can find your way in as the third or the fourth team. But also, like you kind of said earlier, it is a 5-alarm organizational fire if they don't get him moved. So, like, I think that's number one, why they're being more aggressive. They know this has to be done. Like, they have reached the end of the road with this thing, number one. And number two, you cannot sit back and wait for offers to come to you when you're not in the position of power. They're not in the position of power here. They don't have no power or no leverage, but they don't have much. So, like, you can't sit back and be like, well, we're just going to see what teams throw at us. It's like, no, guys, you guys are the ones that have soured this relationship with your player. You guys are the ones that have not managed his career properly. You haven't managed any of this properly from a top-down standpoint.
You missed your window probably to trade him at the peak of his value.
Yep, it's been an absolute tire fire in every sense of the word. So you can't sit back and wait for something to fall in your lap. It's not falling in your lap. You're probably going to have to, if you want something good back from him, you're probably going to have to give up a little bit more than you'd like. And you're going to have to go find that deal because there are suitors for him. I think there are teams that believe in his talent and would like to take a flyer on him, but they're not breaking the bank over it. They're not bending themselves over backwards to do it. So you're the ones that are going to have to go out and find this deal if it exists.
I just look at players like Anthony Davis who, look, he's obviously good, but I don't know how many, like the health concerns are that so much so that his contract makes him a negative asset, which sounds insane to say, but that's the reality of where you're at when he's got 3 years, 160 million owed to him. And you're like, is he going to even give me 100 games in 3 years? Like that's like a legitimate risk you have when you think about someone like that. And when you think about it from Dallas's perspective, what do they really want for him? They just want as many picks or young players with potential upside as possible, right? We're rebuilding around Cooper. Let's get as much stuff that fits his age timeline. It's not all going to work, but if we get like 4 different things and 2 of them end up being pieces for us, it's worth it, right? And the teams who want Anthony Davis, they probably don't have enough young stuff to throw their way. So that's where someone like a Kuminga can come in. You look at like the Chicago Bulls, right? The Chicago Bulls, they can cobble together 50 million. They probably have enough cap flexibility to take that risk in the sake of, if it doesn't work, it's not like they're like in the second apron or anything. But do they have enough stuff to send to Dallas that interests Dallas in their like mindset of 4 years from now, as opposed to players are going to help me today? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe they'd rather have Kuminga plus like the Vucevic expiring plus like a pick, and then you send some of that Chicago stuff to the Warriors. That's, not amazing, but maybe it's more useful to the Warriors than it is to Dallas. Maybe it's more useful to a team like the Warriors who are hoping to make some noise this year than a team like Dallas who clearly is looking at this through the lens of, we want to be good in 2029, not 2026, Right. So I just wonder, like, again, I don't think it's going to be a great return or anything, but like, it does seem like there's more opportunity to find something that helps you that way at the trade deadline than there was over the summer now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. There's already been kind of a lot of movement and shakeups. There's a lot of teams who aren't happy with the direction of their season. A lot of teams who thought they were going to be good and aren't good. And that happens every year. And that's why it can be advantageous to sometimes wait until the trade deadline, because injuries happen and teams just aren't where their projections were off about who they thought they'd be as a team. So they're either willing to sell parts or they're willing to get a little bit creative to improve their teams. And you can sometimes strike while the iron's hot when that happens.
I mean, Dallas clearly thought they were going to be better. Now they've, fired Nico and they want to go in a different direction.
Atlanta.
So that's one example. Atlanta is better without Trey. Yeah. Like, they just are. So they're trying to move off of him, and they're kind of in a situation where, but who wants him, right? Zion is another one, right? Like, we know that they want to get off of him, but what can they do with him? And then you got teams like Sacramento who wanted to trade their guys over the summer but couldn't, because the new CBA has made it so that everyone signs early extensions and thus is not trade eligible until December or January. I think that's another aspect to why we're seeing more action at the deadline and less action in the summer. I think that's going to be a thing for a while now. Like, last trade deadline was way more action packed than last summer. Last summer was just every 2 hours, Shams tweets out Naz Reid has agreed to an extension. Herb Jones agreed to an extension. PJ Washington has agreed. And I'm just sitting here going like, I thought we were going to get them all. And then, now it's like, well, all those teams are looking to potentially move those guys. They just didn't want to lose the asset. And all those players are like, yes, I will take 100 million guaranteed, and you can move me later. Like, so 100%. I wonder if that's just kind of like unintended consequence of this new CBA. Like, everyone continually extends guys, even guys they don't want to keep, like Kuminga, to keep the optionality of trades and everything going, because like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like free agency is very useful anymore, to be honest with you. Like, not for big acquisition. Free agency is great for like a Melton or a Horford,
Yeah.
Or like finding like that G League guy you like who you think can potentially help you. But like, I don't know. It's not 2010 when like all the stars are hitting free agency and you want to keep all this cap space. And this new cap environment, I think, makes it that you want to always operate above the cap, but below the second apron.
100%. It's obviously a new salary cap environment, and teams they're functioning a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, you don't want to let these salary slots go, because they end up being valuable, because nobody hits free agency anymore. At the end of the day, it's kind of a cyclical thing, or like, chicken or the egg thing. But because nobody hits free agency, you can't really let your players who are on the books just walk for free, because you need the money to trade for other players who are already under contract. Like, it's a very kind of,
you need those mid-sized contracts to cobble trades together, which is, essentially what Kuminga is to the Warriors, but Buddy is too. Buddy, by the way, only has $3 million guaranteed next year. So
I know
he's essentially a $9 million or $10 million expiring contract to other teams. Mm-hmm. Not to, just for salary matching purposes, that allows you to get to 31 million, 32 million. So like, all these things add up, I think about like the Chris Paul contract. They let that expire. It took them 2 years to build their cap back up to the numbers that they had there. And that's to your point, like losing those salary slots, it's very hard to get them back. It takes time. And then you just are limited with what you can do trade wise. This isn't the most interesting podcast stuff, but it is just kind of reality.
100%. 100%. So we'll see what happens, man. We're in a good spot heading into this. I really do believe that. If they can keep racking up some wins, they're in a spot where they can improve the roster like somewhat meaningfully and vault themselves into the second half of the season. Like you said the other day, the January 15th is exactly 41 games into the season. It's incredible how it works like that. So you can you could know your roster for the last 41 games on January 15th. I doubt that happens, but you can know it pretty soon after that. I think I would be surprised if it gets all the way to the deadline just because of it's not toxic in the sense of like the organization hates who Kuminga is as a person or Kuminga hates people within the organization for like being bad people. It's hit the end of the road. It's fraught. It's over. And everybody's like playing the good soldier, but everybody knows where it's ending up. So the better you can get this like situated and moved on from, the better it is for everybody.
I also think just the amount of they're actively trying right now suggests that they're hoping to have something in place very quickly after the 15th.
Yeah.
As opposed to the world where they're sitting on his contract and it's 2 days before the deadline. You might get squeezed really badly then,
Right.
Like, so it's kind of like,
I think that's actually a huge point. If you wait until the 11th hour on this, teams know you basically have to move him. You are going to get squeezed. You need to get this done. I actually hadn't thought of that yet. It's a fantastic point. You need to get this done quickly because you don't want to get squeezed too badly because teams know he's at that point, he's $23 million just sitting on your bench for the rest of your season. And the Warriors don't want that. And everybody knows that the Warriors don't want
and
that.
he doesn't want it. Like, I think I think our guy, A-Rock Turner, you're going to start hearing from him on February 1st if a deal has not locked into place. So
as we should.
Yeah.
He should start making a fuss on February 1st if they haven't gotten something figured out.
So I don't know. The speed at which this stuff's coming out makes me think it's going to happen sooner than later. And January is a big month because it just is great, favorable schedule for them to start creating some separation and getting up above 500 by a meaningful number of games and potential trade to just, close the chapter here, hopefully bringing an impact player in some capacity. And, let's ride. Let's see what it is. Let's have another second half run like last year.
I can't wait, man.
Only this time you're starting from a position of being like 6-7 games above 500 instead of 1 game below it at the time.
Exactly. I think that's the key right there.
All right. Appreciate everyone. Everyone have a safe and happy New Year's. We'll be back after the Thunder game.
Thanks, everybody.